you were at Romney's headquarters last night. Was that the biggest party you've been at lately?
Yeah, it was a pretty raucous party last night at Romney headquarters. It was a short party, though, because, as you know, we got the results pretty early last night. It had a totally different feel from Iowa, just in that advisors were popping up left and right. They had trucked in, a bus full of donors to basically show them this victory party, and now they're having a fundraiser in Boston today. So it was, much more of a victory party than anything we saw in Iowa, for sure.
So they must be riding high on that, and trucking in the donors is always good. Make them happy, because it is after all the donors that fuel these campaigns in a big way. Let's turn to the economic state of South Carolina, which is where I assume you are heading when you get on that plane down to South Carolina. South Carolina is basically an economic mess when compared to New Hampshire. Double the rate of unemployment. That's going to be a big factor in how this poll turns out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing you were talking earlier about South Carolina and social issues and evangelical vote, I mean, when you talk to people in South Carolina, they're saying a lot of that could sort of fall into the background, because people are actually really concerned there about, getting the economy going and about getting a job. And you see that when you go to campaign events there, and the first people you talk to are people who've been out of work. And so to the extent that we see, someone like Mitt Romney go in with a message about boosting the economy and getting jobs, going again, I think that, that could resonate.
That could really resonate. And just some figures here. South Carolina unemployment in 9.9%, so I rounded there. And more than half the state's jobless have been out of work for more than 6 months. And 6 months is the economist's term for long-term unemployed, which is very hard for those people to get back to work. Typically, this is a really bleak situation. Is the Mitt Romney message of "I created jobs, even though I was a job slasher at Bain Capital," which is what's coming out, is that going to resonate with the voters?
So that's the question, is which message resonates more? Is it going to be Mitt Romney going out talking about how he created jobs and, kind of trying to sympathize with people by talking about how he used to counsel the unemployed when he, through his Mormon church? Or is it going to be the alternative message, which is, his rivals just absolutely slamming him about his experience at Bain and basically saying, he came in and ripped companies apart and people lost their jobs? And I think, it's still a question of which one of those messages will be stronger. Of course, as we know, what Mitt Romney has on his side is the money to make his point. They, said today that they raised $24 million in the fourth quarter, and it's their biggest haul so far. So he definitely, can put his money where his mouth is in terms of, making his record known.
Now, there is a mini documentary floating around that's going to be released in line with this campaign in South Carolina. When Mitt Romney came to town, I think is the title. I've seen the trailer for that. It looks pretty bleak. Some pretty sad-looking unemployed people in that. I mean, it looks well produced. Does that have a big impact, do you think?
I think that's the big question. So you will see a pretty powerful message of people who have lost their jobs, and there are definitely people in South Carolina who, can sympathize with that. They'll see that and it'll mirror their personal situation. But the other thing about South Carolina, Republican voters there are, free market, pro-business Republican. These are Republican voters. So to the extent that you're actually making an argument against free enterprise, you could see some of these rivals run into a little bit of trouble. And I think, we have seen that as you've seen, the party establishment kind of pushing back on people like Newt Gingrich.
And the other candidates, obviously Mitt Romney has his plank he's running on, which is job creation, and we know what the candidates are saying about him. Do any of the others stand out as sort of job creators or the potential to be people who can fix the jobs economy?
The other one who really sticks to the economy message tends to be John Huntsman. But, as we saw, he had a pretty lackluster performance in New Hampshire after going all in there. And it's just hard to imagine that he can get any kind of momentum he would need to keep going through South Carolina and further if he spent so much time in New Hampshire and, still had a, pretty lackluster performance.